Hello, everyone. This is Hannah Mail, and this is a Zoom video that has two purposes. So one is to fundraise again for my Egyptology program, and so that's what this screen share is. So this is my campaign on the GoFundMe site. So it's titled Explorations in Egyptology. And then the second part is I will go over objects that I found in different museums that have to do with women and gender, which is my main research focus within the overall study of Egyptology. So again, if you want to contribute to me doing this kind of thing full time, please contribute to my GoFundMe. Time is running out. So that's partly why I'm laying more stress on the fundraising than I have in other videos in the past. This link will be on the video description when I upload this as well. So now we are going to go to the PowerPoint. And so this is the PowerPoint and where the objects will be taken from. So I'm going to start the slideshow here now. So these are just some maps of Egypt, just to sort of give you an idea of some of the geography of Egypt itself. So this is a map on the left of the flow of the Nile River. So this is the Nile, this is the Egyptian Delta here, and then this is the other sort of fertile part in terms of what the Nile River gives life to. And when you get down here, you're getting into what the Egyptians called Nubia and what's modern day Sudan as well. This map on the right shows you the different regions within Egypt itself. So again, this is the Nile River. So this is what the Egyptians called Nubia, which is modern day Sudan. Up here in the Delta region is lower Egypt, and it's lower because the way that the Nile runs. So lower is actually up, and then upper is down. And so this is Egypt's delta. So this is the most fertile region of Egypt. So this is where a lot of the old kingdom royal funerary remains and burial grounds are. So we have Giza and Saqqara and Dashur. Modern Cairo is somewhere in here. And this was also, again, very close to modern Cairo and a little bit buried under it as well, was the capital of Egypt, Memphis, starting in the Old Kingdom. And Memphis remained the capital to some extent all the way through the New Kingdom as well. And then when we get down to Upper Egypt here, we're getting into the more deserty region. And so this area of Egypt, particularly the Valley of the Kings and the area of Thebes, which is where modern day Luxor is. This area really achieved prominence in the New Kingdom. Before that, it was really just one of the many local areas of Egypt. And then you have the site of Abydos. Abydos was a royal burial ground in the early dynastic periods. That's sort of where it first comes to prominence. And then when you get to the Middle Kingdom and you get what's called the democratization of the afterlife, there's non-royal activity on the site as well. And then when you get to the New Kingdom, there's still that non-royal activity, but by that point you also have some of the pharaohs build or have ordered erect different temples on the site of Abydos as well. And then you have the Sinai Peninsula across from, or opposite from Lower Egypt, and from the Old Kingdom on, this is where a lot of the Egyptians got their minerals. So the pharaohs would send expeditions to the Sinai Peninsula to get minerals and other goods as well. So in the Sinai Peninsula, there's a fair amount of both rock art and hieroglyphic carvings and inscriptions on the actual rocks from these expeditions as well. So this is a sort of very short chronology of Egypt, or at least it gives you the sort of layout of the pharaonic period. So Egypt starts out as not a unified state. So in that Neolithic period, which starts in what's called the pre-dynastic, and then when you get to Naqada 3, that's when you basically have the beginnings of state formation. And then the state is unified. The details of that process are still being debated. And so that gets you to the early dynastic period. So that's when we see those first royal burials, or what have been interpreted as royal burials at Abydos. And then we have the Old Kingdom, which is when we think at least the monarchy sort of reached the height of its power. This is also called the Pyramid Age because it's when the most pyramids were built and at least the most resources were devoted to them. So this is when we have Giza come to the fore as a royal burying ground. And then you have centralized state authority fall apart at the end of the Old Kingdom. And that gets you to this first period of multiple polities existing at the same time, which Egyptologists have labeled intermediate periods. And so that gets you to this first intermediate period. This first intermediate period is ended by Mentuhotep II. He starts out as one of these local kings, but he eventually reunifies Egypt, and so he ushers in the Middle Kingdom. And then centralized state authority falls apart again, and that leads to the second intermediate period. And then the second intermediate period is ended by a local, what starts out as a local dynasty from Thebes that reunifies Egypt, and this gets us to the New Kingdom. This is probably the most well-known period of Egypt, so a lot of its most famous rulers that kind of the public knows about come from this New Kingdom period. And then towards the end of the New Kingdom state, centralized authority breaks down again, and that gets you to this third intermediate period. And then the country comes together once again under unified rule, and that gets you to the late period. And that's when we see the most direct foreign interactions between Egypt and the other states of the ancient Mediterranean. So by the time you're getting into the late period and sort of the larger chronology of the world, you're in the Iron Age. And then on the right here are just some other sort of key points about how chronology is done in the field of Egyptology. So from the pre-dynastic to the late period, it's 3,000 plus years. there's 31 or 32 dynasties that make up these periods overall. And then this dynastic system was actually first formulated by a Ptolemaic priest, and Egyptologists have made revisions and changes to it, but his basic terminology has remained in use by Egyptologists. So the first site that we are going to go to is the site of Giza. So this is a map of that Giza site overall. So this is the Giza Plateau overall. So it's most famous for the three great pyramids. So that's Khafre's pyramid, Khufu's, and then Menkare's here. But it actually has a lot of other buildings and remains on it as well. So as it stands now, the modern city of Cairo has really encroached basically right up to the pyramids and very close to the Giza plateau. So it kind of, when you go, it definitely is a sort of weird juxtaposition. But if you approach it from the desert side, it still looks sort of like it's, kind of remote from everything. So a lot of people sort of see the pyramids and think that that's the full burial site, but the pyramids were actually just part of the burial site. So for a lot of the Old Kingdom, you have members of the court and members of the royal family that are buried or want to be buried next to the ruler or as close as they can get, because that increases their chances, or they think it increases their chances to get into the afterlife. So clustered around these different royal pyramids, you see those courtiers and royal family members of that ruler as well. So Khufu's pyramid here, we have the pyramid itself, and then we have his funerary temple. So the temple where offerings were made to his spirit after he passed. But then next to his pyramid, we have the Eastern cemetery. So these are mastabas, or tombs, for members of Khufu's family. So this is where we find some of the royal princess burials from this period. And then we also have a rather famous queen's tomb from this Old Kingdom period. She seems to be related in some way to Khufu as well. And that's the tomb of Queen Hathor here. And then we have the Western cemetery, also next to both the pyramid of Khufu, and then the pyramid of Khafre is here as well. And the Western cemetery seems to hold private elite mastabas. So people who were in the court of either Khufu or Khafre, but weren't necessarily their family members. And then we have Menkare's pyramid and his funerary temple, and then some of the pyramids of his queens, possibly here as well. So this really does give you a good sense of just how massive the archaeological site of Giza is, and just how much there actually is. So this is from Google Earth, and it's just showing you that Giza plateau from the air, or at least a good chunk of it. So these images here, these are the different mastabas that are scattered throughout the plateau. And then this is that west field. So in the map, it's this chunk here. So this is something this is an object that came, we think, originally from that west field. So from here, and this was, so this is a stele, or the stele of Tenj Ente Ameneph. And this is one of the object classes and one of the ways that we can get at women in ancient Egypt, is from their tomb steles. So probably their original tomb, because this is a husband and wife. So this is the husband, and then this is the wife. So probably their original tomb was in that west field on the Giza plateau. And this object was not originally in their tomb, but was in their tomb chapel. So the mastabas of the old kingdom, and then to some extent tombs all the way through the middle, or through the new kingdom, had both the tomb and then, so the actual burial place, and then a tomb chapel, or some kind of building where the living could come and give offerings of food and drink to the deceased. And this tomb chapel, or building, or structure for that purpose, is where a lot of these stele, like this one, were actually originally in. So that was their original context. And so here you see the couple, so there'd be for an offering table, and then their names are here as well. So the Egyptians were big believers in the importance of names, and names having power. So if you knew the name of something or someone, you had power over him or her, and as long as their name was known, you would not be forgotten. So this is the tomb owner. So a common pattern for the old kingdom, and beyond that as well, was for the tomb to be a shared tomb with the, or for the husband and wife. So the person who commissioned the tomb and owned it was the husband, and then he died, and then his wife was, buried after him, if she died after him, but they were buried in the same tomb. And so that's why in a lot of these stele, you'll see the tomb owner, that's male, that's in front of the offering stele, and then his wife is before the offering table as well. But in a lot of instances, it does seem that the husband is the one who commissioned the tomb and paid for it, and probably paid for the stele as well. And so then you have the couple's son here, that is, giving honor to his parents and maybe bringing them offerings as well. And then you have their granddaughter here. So this gives you some idea of their family structure. So you have her name here. You also know that she's the least important person in this because she's the smallest. You know that she is still a youth because she has the finger in her mouth, and in Egyptian iconography, that finger in the mouth was one of the common signs that was sort of used to signify that this person is not yet an adult. this is just a Google Earth image of that pyramid of Menkuare with his Valley Temple, I think here as well. So in the map that we saw before, it's this chunk here. So then we have, this is an actual tomb relief. So this came from one of those Westfield tombs at Giza, or probably Westfield. And this is from the British Museum. So again, we see a husband and a wife here. So they're in front of an offering table, but this was found in their actual tomb. So this would not have been seen by living persons. It would just have been seen by the spirit of the deceased. This is another stele piece from Giza as well, and this one is sort of in an interesting shape. So it's another one where you see the husband and wife couple here. So again, their names are up here. So in this case, it's Ufe and then Wenit. And then these are some of their family members as well. So starting in the Old Kingdom, but even more in later periods, the stele will not just have the husband and wife, but it'll have the family group as a whole. And so this is one of the ways that you can get at relatives and sort of how family groupings were conceived in ancient Egypt as well. So this, unlike the piece that we just saw, this would have been in this couple's tomb chapel. Or that's the most likely original context for this piece. So this would have been seen by the living as well as the spirit of the deceased. So like I said, this is the husband and wife. So it's probably the husband that owns the tomb and paid for it, and probably paid for this stele as well. And then when the wife dies, she is buried in the tomb with her husband. And then this is that same husband and wife. So they're just down here now. And you see behind them that they have their son and their daughter here, and their names are up here as well. So again, if you look at the finger in the mouth, you see that youth signification. You know that this is their son and daughter because if you look very closely at the hieroglyphs, they have the pronoun for son and daughter. This is that same couple again here, but they're followed by two boys, and it's not signified whether or the exact relationship of these two boys to them is not signified. So you just know that they appear to be youths or not full adults. But this is something else that you'll see in Egyptian art, is it's divided into registers with multiple scenes. And so you'll see the same people appear multiple times, but just in different scenes. And then, like I said, you have multiple burial grounds used in the Old Kingdom. So you not only have Giza, but you have Saqqara as well. And so this is, again, the full site of Saqqara. So like Giza, it has multiple archaeological remains and multiple buildings on it. It was also used, again, for non-royal burials in the New Kingdom as well. But during the Old kingdom, it was mostly a royal burial ground. So it's probably most famous for the step pyramid, which is somewhere here. And then the capital, Memphis, in the Old Kingdom was somewhere here. So this is around here is where modern Cairo is. It also has the pyramids of Abu Sar, and some other royal burial grounds here as well. So as I said, while it was mostly used as a royal burial ground during the Old Kingdom, during the New Kingdom, you find non-royal burials there as well, and that includes the tomb chapel. So this is a model from a site called Digital Egypt for universities. So this is a model of a non-royal tomb chapel. So again, not the actual burial place of a non-royal person or persons, but the building where his or her deceased or their deceased or their living relatives would come to give them that food and drink to sustain their deceased kin in the afterlife. And so you see here that by that point, what was a royal burial symbol, the pyramid back in the Old Kingdom, had now been usurped or starting to be used by non-royal individuals as well. And this again is where a lot of these stele lays that you see in Egyptian collections would have been originally placed in, and would have been seen by the living as well as the spirit of the deceased. So this is from that same Digital Egypt site, and it's a block, I think originally from one of these tomb chapels at Saqqara from the New Kingdom, that shows offerings being brought and kind of the architecture of this tomb chapel. So in the distance, we sort of see that pyramid that we saw on the end, and a little bit of the interior as well, and some of the columns and things that actually held that building up here. So this is a Pear Statue, so a husband and wife statue that was actually found still fixed to the floor in one of these tomb chapels at Saqqara, so still in situ. So this statue would have been originally in a building like this. So it would have been seen by the living as well as the spirit of the deceased. And so it gives the couple's names. So they are Mary and his wife in Ayu. And part of the idea behind both the couples that likenesses appearing both on stele and then in these Pear statues that you see is that if something happened to your body, your actual mummified body remains, then you had a backup in terms of a vessel that the food and drink could be absorbed by. And so you see here at least the husband's names and titles here as well. And so at some point here, it might be on the back or it might just be on the base that I can't fully see. You have the wife's name as well and a little bit more information about the couple in terms of their biography. So that's where you get the info that the husband actually started as an official working under the King Akhenaten. So he actually served Aten. And then after Akhenaten died, he still did work on his tomb at Saqqara. And he also worked for the new ruler Tutankhamun, and then he became the greatest of seers under Aten, or under I, i.e. the high priest of Aten, but he also then became the high priest of the Temple of Nis, because one of the things that Tutankhamun did was he brought back the worship of the traditional deities as well. So this is Saqqara, again from Google Earth, as kind of it stands now. So Saqqara is a little bit more removed from modern Cairo, so it's a little bit further out in the desert in terms of the site. So this is the step pyramid of Dojor. That's probably the most famous monument on the site. And then these are the other buildings and archaeological remains that are at Saqqara as well. So this gives you, at least from Google Earth, a good sense of Saqqara as a whole. And so we're still at the overall site of Saqqara, but we're at a particular sub-site in Saqqara. So what this is, that's called the Teti Pyramid Cemetery. So via Google Earth. So on the map from Digital Egypt, we are in this region here. And it's called the Teti Pyramid Cemetery because there's the pyramid to Teti here, but then there's private burials and tomb chapels from those who served Teti and just other people who wanted to be buried in that sub cemetery there as well. And this is some of the modern Egyptian cultivation here, and I think this might be modern Cairo, or another sort of part of modern Egypt that's actually lived in and inhabited. So this is from this object originally came from that Teti Pyramid Cemetery, so not the pyramid itself, but one of these other burials that surrounds it. And this is a relief fragment. So this was originally came from, or at least I think it originally came from an actual tomb, but it came from a female tomb in the Teti Pyramid Cemetery. And it came from the tomb of a woman named Merit Teti Ayit. So you see her here, and she's in front of an offering table, and different goods and provisions are being brought to her here. So this was originally part of a larger niche that was within her tomb. And so that's why you see these goods and things being brought. And so her name is here. And so this is the hieroglyphs starting here of what all this actually says. So it gives her name, the beloved lady of King Teti comes, the revered in the presence of Anubis, who is upon his mountain, the embalmer, Mary et Ayet, and then it gives the offerings that ideally will be given to her in the afterlife as well. So 1,000 loaves of bread, 1,000 jars of beer, 1,000 oxen, 1,000 geese, and then it gives her name again, or who these goods are going to, for the revered one, Mary et Ayet. And so a lot of these funerary goods that you'll see repeated over and over that the deceased really wants is bread and beer and fowl of different kinds as well, and cattle or oxen. This came from that same tomb, so it's another relief fragment from the same woman's tomb. So you see her again here, and she is being brought more offerings, and then there's more offerings and good things that are piled up on the table as well there. This is also originally from the same overall site, so Saqqara, but it's from one of these other new kingdom tombs, and this is a husband and wife tomb. So this is a Lentil Fragment. So this, I think, was, something that was either in their actual tomb originally or possibly in their tomb chapel. So we see the wife here, and then we see the husband, and they are offering or giving worship to different deities. So that's the deities here that they're giving worship to. And it gives their names here. So Iua and I. So starting from here, so this is where we're starting, because one of the ways that you can tell sort of how to read hieroglyphics is you look at any animals and see what direction they're facing, and the direction that you're facing or that they're facing is where you actually start to read the hieroglyphic. So all these animals, like this one here, they're all facing towards the right. So that's how you know, okay, I start with this register at the top here, and then I end here. So starting from here, giving praise to Osiris, kissing the earth for Wenifer, so that he might give sweet breath to the scribe of the silver and gold treasuries of the Lord of the two lands, Iuna, true voice. So this is all referring to the husband and his titles here. And then you go to this next part here, and this is where it gives you some biographical info about the wife. So, and his wife, the mistress of the house, Iue, favored by Hathor, the mistress of the sycamore. So again, all this chunk is referring to her. So this figure here. And you know that you start to read it from here because this person and this animal are both facing to the right. So that's how you know you start to read it from here. And then we have Dendendra. That is another site where we get a good amount of archaeological material. So this is from that Digital Egypt for University site, and it gives you the full site of Dendendra and the different archaeological remains that are on that site as well. So one of the major, or one of the buildings on Dendendra is a temple to Hathor. So that's what this structure is here. So on the map, it's that building here. And so we get a lot of material culture remains from this region. So again, the temple and site was in the desert, and then you have the cultivatable land and still cultivated land that's behind it as well. So this is a stele, we think, from that Dendendra. So someone, probably a woman, who came to the Hathor temple and put this stele there, or ordered it erected there, so had the resources to pay for it in some way. And this is the stele part that we have left. And then the same thing here. Again, they think that this was originally from that Dendor temple to Hathor. So we see the woman, and actually there's two here. So this is the first one, and then you can just see the sort of hand of the other adult woman here. So it seems to be dedicated or erected probably by these two women. And then these are, at least judging by the hieroglyphs, these are their 4 sons that they are bringing to the temple or have had depicted on the stele as well, or 3 sons. And then I think there might be the sort of, you can just see here the bottom half of the 4th one. This is from that same context, but this is a stele of a husband and wife. So the husband in front, and then we have the wife in the back. And these hieroglyphs here will at the very least probably give us their names, and maybe some of their titles as well. So if you look here, these hieroglyphs relate to the wife because it gives the hieroglyphic words of his, because that figure there is actually an F, his wife, his beloved, and then this I think is probably her name. So her name is BBJ. So beige or some pronunciation like that. So these hieroglyphs probably relate to husband, at least in part, and may give at least one of his titles that he held in life. So when you get to the Middle Kingdom, you have the monarchs both develop new areas. So they open up the Fayum region that's in Middle Egypt for irrigation, so they can feed more people. But also there's burials and funerary things that happen in the Fayum as well, and that leads to more material culture remains that Egyptologists can find. They also, or Thebes also develops from sort of a backwater region of Egypt to one of the most important cultural and religious places, and that leads to a lot more material culture. And then there's reuse of sites from the Old Kingdom as well. So we've seen that with Saqqara, and we see it with Abydos as well. And one of the ways that you see this reuse come out from Middle Kingdom on is stele, and not just stele for people that we might term middle class, but those even lower down on the socioeconomic scale as well. And part of that also ties in to the fact that we seem to have these sort of machinery and things that you need for the afterlife in terms of goods more people seem to want those items and to be able to get them. So Egyptologists have termed this the democratization of the afterlife. So this is Bidos. This is from Digital Egypt, and the site is put out by University College of London. And so this has all the phases from its different periods of use. So there is a current town at Abydos, so I think that's what that is. These are the early dynastic royal tombs. And then you have what are termed the royal enclosures, also from the early dynastic period here, that seem to be directed or linked in some way with these early dynastic royal tombs. And then you have the sort of some of the cemeteries of the site as well. So the northern cemetery here, and then another middle cemetery. But then the town sees use in the Middle Kingdom. So these are some of the buildings from the Middle Kingdom, and then the remains of the 12th dynasty town. And then there is also burials from the Middle Kingdom at Abydos that are non-royal. And so that is at least part of what that is and this. And in addition, one of the royal tombs that we now know belonged to one of these very early kings when Egypt was first unified in the Middle Kingdom. That tomb becomes associated or believed to be the tomb of the god Osiris. So Abydos becomes a major pilgrimage site for Egyptians of different social classes as well. And so that's where you get a lot of these stele too, where people, either as a commemoration of an actual pilgrimage that they took there, set up these stele, or sometimes they order a stele made, even if they didn't make the pilgrimage in person. If the stele is there, then they can always make it in spirit at the very least. So even if there's a stele at Abydos of family or person, doesn't necessarily mean that they were buried there. It's just sometimes that they're making that pilgrimage either in person or in spirit to see the tomb of Osiris. So this is just, again, from Digital Egypt, and it shows you looking at just that town, so the actual living spaces of Abydos, and sort of how they grew over time. So the yellow is that Middle Kingdom 12th dynasty town. The black, so this appears to be the town of the first dynasty. So when people in Egypt's early dynastic period first settled on the site. And then the green is, so this is building structures of the 6th dynasty, so the Old Kingdom, and you can see here how some of that seems to overlap settlement layers of that first dynasty or early dynastic period. And then we have red is, red. So here, these are the walls or settlement layers from the town of Abydos during the New Kingdom. And then blue, so here is the town layers from the late period as well. This is a map of sites in Abydos that are mainly coming from the Middle Kingdom. So we have the main town, so where people lived. And then one of the main Middle Kingdom burial sites or cemeteries here. This is the site of those early dynastic tombs. So on the map, we saw here, those royal tombs here, but by the Middle Kingdom, one of those royal tombs was believed to be the tomb of Osiris. So this is the pilgrimage spot where people actually wanted to come in the Middle Kingdom. And because of that, of course, that pilgrimage spot attracted royal attention and royal temples as well by the New Kingdom. So we have kings like Seti I in the New Kingdom that built a temple that was dedicated to him there as well, but also gave honor and reverence to the supposed tomb of Osiris. And then a little bit earlier on in the Middle Kingdom, we have some of the rulers there that have their mortuary temples in that general area as well. And this is where some of the modern villages and Nile floodplain still is. So this is the plan for the Temple of Osiris that was built in the Middle Kingdom based on the belief that, one of these tombs here was actually his original tomb, and Osiris was the main god of the dead. So he was the one that welcomed people into the underworld and sort of watched and ruled over them. So a lot of the pilgrimage stele and material cultural remains that we have from the Middle Kingdom were found either within the temple or very close to it. So this is one of those stele examples. So this is a stele the stele of Ku that was probably found at Abydos within this sort of temple region or very close to it. And so we see the person Ku who commissioned this stele, and he's there with his wife. And then these are the different members of his family down here. So this, again, wasn't so much meant to mark his burial place, but to mark this pilgrimage site to the tomb of Osiris. And so this is actually one of the unique stelae that we have. Sorry, I got confused. So while normally this register would be the husband and wife, and the husband would be the most important person, Ku is actually the woman. So Ku is actually the wife. And so she appears twice. So this is the same woman Ku, but these are two different men. And so it's a little bit of a mystery because the hieroglyphs don't make it completely clear whether this is a woman, so the same woman Ku who married twice, and this is her first husband and this is her second husband, or it's two different couples that are at this pilgrimage site, but both wives just happened to have the name of Ku, but they're two separate women. So it's sort of unclear. And then in the third scene, the sons that are referred to, so this scene here is also a little bit unclear because they're all referred to as his son. So does that mean just this first couple? If they are two separate couples, or maybe it's you know, Ku having that same couple.